Hello everyone, it is Karina with Karina Loves to Plan. Thank you for joining me in my little corner of the internet where I talk all things planners, fountain pens, and fountain pen inks. And I'm going to be looking through November's currently inked today to just let you know how I managed or fared with all of these and which one was my favorite combination. Let's get started. The first combination was my Zodiac Pen Co. in Capricorn, and this is in Bourbon and Smoke, and it has Diamine Yule Log. This was a lovely combination. This is a great ink and it had great ink flow. There were no hard starts or clogging with the shimmer, and the shimmer was pretty consistent throughout as well. So I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Capricorn a 10. So really 10s all around for this particular combination. Let me show you what my doodle or Zentangle looked like. So there's the doodle that I did with Yule Log as well as the paper swatches, and I'll bring that closer here. I love how it looks more caramel on the Rhodia and the Midori and even the bank paper, but it looks so dark on the Aerofil paper, and just that shimmer makes such a difference. I don't know if you can see that, but I really love the way that it painted out in the rose as well. And then the shimmer is actually quite consistent throughout this doodle here. And yes, I mean, over time, it's going to decrease in the amount of shimmer as the shimmer starts to settle, but it's just so fun to work with. So that is my Zodiac Pen Co. in the Capricorn with Diamine Yule Log. The next combination is my Waterman Karen, and it's got Diamine Wine Divine. So this has been ground down to an extra fine nib, and let's see how it handles the shimmer. I really enjoyed this combination. It had good flow and there was great shimmer distribution, and I had no issues with the extra fine nib. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the Waterman Karen a 9. Diamine ink seemed to work really well in my pens, and I know I've had a lot of people say that shimmers just don't work in their pens, but for me, Diamine works really well. The size of their shimmer particles seems to work well with the feeds and the extra fine nibs, so highly recommend Diamine inks. So let's look at the doodle. There is the finished doodle, and look at the way that ink looks on all of the different papers. I really love the burgundy color mixed with that gold shimmer. Really, really lovely. Now it looked like it kind of, what was I gonna say? Absorbed into that onion skin paper a little bit, but it looks really great on the other papers. Hold on here. Lucy, you wanna try and sit on my lap right this second? Okay, come on. You come sit in my lap. There we go. Okay, and then here we've got this doodle. Basically what I'm trying to do with these is take what I used to do with like the bigger, I say bigger, but the Zentangles that took up 16 squares, and then trying to condense it down to a quarter the size in the 4 squares. And I really like doing these tinier Zentangles or doodles. It really appeals to the extra fine nib lover in me, so love it. It takes a little bit more time, but I love the overall result. So that is my Waterman Karen in amber with the extra fine nib with Diamine Wine Divine. The next pen and ink combination is my Just Turnings in the Swirly Joyful Kismet. This has a fine architect nib, and I have it inked with Taranishi Opera Rose. I really like this ink color. It's one of my favorites, but it did bleed through in my 4-year Planner Monkey Co journal. It could be that it was just that TRP paper or the Tomoe River paper that bleeds through, but otherwise it was such a fun combo. I gave the ink a 10, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the pen a 9. I thought the combination of the two was quite perfect. You can see almost like hints of that color in this pen as well. And it was one of my first, I say, custom resins from Turnt Pen Co., one of the first ones I ever did, and I've grown to love it over the years because it's such a great fall resin. So let's look at the paper swatches and doodle. So look at the way this ink looks on these paper swatches. It looks so pink on the Aerofil and the Tomoe River paper, but then looks way more orange on the bank, Yamamoto bank, onion skin, and even the Midori. But you can tell that there's hints of orange in here when I'm painting with that. But when you're doing the doodle, I loved being able to do this particular one, especially with that architect nib, so you can really see the difference in the broad strokes and the downstrokes. And just look at the shading as well. Really, really fun combination, but a little unfortunate that it did bleed through in my Planner Monkey Code journal. So that is my Just Turning Swirly Joyful Kismet with Cherry Opera Rose. This next combo is my Bennu Oat in Luster, and this has Tono and Limbs Burma Tourmaline, and really it was the perfect match. This fine nib handled this shimmer well, and the combo was really, really fun to use. I may have finally found the Bennu for me. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the Bennu Oat a 9. Now this was a really, really fun ink combination. I loved the pink and I loved the shimmer, but I don't think it's one that I will end up keeping or buying a bottle of. Sometimes when you're doing these currently inks, it really is about just trying a sample of ink and then that's it. I've tried it. Let's move on. There's so many inks out there that I want to try that I don't need to buy a bottle of everything. If I have samples and I get to try it in a currently inked, sometimes that's enough, or sometimes it's just enough to be able to do a swatch and test it, and that's it. Not every ink is meant to be bought as a bottle, and that's okay. Enough of my little soapbox here. Let's look at the doodle. So there are the different swatches on the papers, and interesting enough, and maybe it's just because of the way I swatch it, there's not enough shimmer on these ones, but tons of shimmer on these two, and that's the way that I had dipped the nib or the paintbrush. So there's definitely more shimmer on these, but look at the base of that. It really looks like a pink highlighter ink, and I don't see as much variation but in the base color, but you can see some different colors here, like a brown or a green pooling along the edges here. You don't see it as much in the Midori, maybe a tiny bit on the Aerofil, but you can really see it on the Yamamoto Bank and the Onion Skin. But this was such a fun little doodle. I know it's just doing scribbles in a square shape, but there is something so satisfying to see it all come together as one big doodle like that. Now, this is it's not the only Tono and Limbs shimmer ink that I have in here, but this one was definitely the better of the two. So that is my Bennu Oat Luster with Tono and Limbs Burma Tourmaline. The next combination is my Platinum and Hachimonjiya Hatsuyuki, and this has a fine nib, and it is inked with Kitty Inkpot Elegy of the Fallen. Can we just look at this pen? Oh my gosh. I have loved this so much. I use this pen every day in my A6 5-year journal. I loved it so much. The fine nib is so crisp yet so smooth, and the ink had good flow, and it's also quite legible. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level a 9. And if I had to grade the nib as well, oh my gosh, 10 out of 10 for that fine platinum nib. Just absolutely divine. Loved it. Let's look at the doodle. This one was so interesting because look at the way that ink looks on all of these different papers. There's hints of yellow and orange coming out on the Midori, but even on the Tomoe River paper, look at the way that ink is chromo shading. There's blues and dark reds and even yellows and oranges in there. So you're really seeing it on the Tomoe River paper. You're seeing it on the Midori, not so much on the Aerofil actually. A little bit, like it's trying to show that blue or gray in the Rhodia, but definitely seeing more of that yellow or green in the Onion Skin and the Yamamoto Bank, and maybe just a hint of that in the bank paper. So interesting. And then I did these tiny doodles on this one. So basically this is the quarter of the size of a bigger doodle that looks like, I know I can find one that's the bigger size here. So that is the size that I would have normally done. So like 4 by 4. And this one is literally 2 by 2. So instead of being over 16 squares, each design is over 4 squares, but I love it. This fine nib was perfect for that amount of detail. Yes, this looks like it would have taken a lot of time, but it was so fun for me to be able to do that repetitive motion over and over again. So that is my Platinum Hachimonjiya Hatsuyuki with a fine nib with Kitty Inkpot Elegy of the Fallen. Next we have my Twisby Eco in cream rose gold. This has a fine nib and I've inked it with a Wearingle Path. There's still, well, I say quite a bit of ink in here. There's maybe about, oh, a third in here. I'm not sure. But people ask me what do I do with this ink once I'm done with the month. And honestly, sometimes I will keep using a pen if I really, really enjoy the combination. And other times, if I'm not enjoying the combination, I'm not going to force myself to use it. And I will, unfortunately, dump it down the sink. I know some people find that absolutely abhorrent, but don't force yourself to use a pen and ink combination if you don't like using it, because you're not going to enjoy it. And like, this is what, maybe a mil of ink. Yeah, not a huge deal for me. But anyway, this ink is so full of shimmer and the fine nib handled it beautifully. It's not an ink I may keep, but it was fun to try. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 10, and the comfort level of the Eco an 8. Let's just look at the shimmer bomb that Wearingle Path is. There's so much shimmer in here and it's a fantastic ink. It behaved well, it's legible. I don't see too much variation in the different paper samples, but I do like the base color of it. I just feel like for me the shimmer is a little bit much, and for me to say that shimmer is a bit much, wow, that's saying something. But look at how the shimmer is showing in that particular doodle. This one was fun to do as well. It's not an ink that I plan on probably purchasing a bottle of or even keeping the sample, but it was fun to try while I had it. So that is my Twisby Eco in cream rose gold with Wearingle Path. The next pen and ink combination is my Pelikan M800 in green black, and this is filled with Ostrich Ink Sycamore Tree. I wasn't sure if this would be too light, but in this extra fine nib, and Pelikan nibs are quite juicy, this was delightful. Great flow, and the shading is so pretty. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of the Pelikan M800 a 9. And let's just take a look at how gorgeous this ink looks on all of these paper swatches. I mean, there's the hints of pink in there that are just fantastic, and you don't really, well, I say that, you did see that in the initial ink swatch, but it's just such an interesting color. But you always wonder whether that's going to translate to the written. That's why I love the doodles, because look at the shading that's coming out in that. Just lovely. I decided that, you know, there's still actually quite a bit of this sample left, so I'm going to use it probably in the spring because I loved it that much. So that is my Pelikan M800 with Ostrich Ink Sycamore Tree. Whoops. Next we have my Franklin Christoph in a Model 2, and this is the Van Ness exclusive. This has a medium nib that's been ground into a Kadachi grind by Matthew Chen, and it has Sailor Manyo Nagi. This was a fun combination. It had great ink flow and shading, and this grind actually really showed off the shading well. I'm noticing my spelling error there. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level a 9. Sorry about that spelling error. Oops. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Zentangle. How cool does this ink look on all the different papers? I love the way that looks on the Tomoe River paper. It's got hints of gray in the shading as well. And then in the Midori, there's almost darker hints of grayish purple in there, but then not as much chromo shading in the other papers. And then when you see it actually being used, oh, hold on, Lucy decided to bark right now. If you see some of the shading that's happening here as well, it looks really, really cool. So that is my Franklin Christoph, my Van Ness exclusive with Sailor Manyo Nagi. Oh, that is totally off center. The next pen and ink combination is my Esterbrook SD Blue Moon, and it's inked with Tono and Lim's Labradorite. Not my favorite. And as you can see, I'm having hard start issues here. I even pushed the ink into the feed from the converter and it's just clogged. Awful. I gave the ink a 9 because it's beautiful, but the flow a 3. Maybe I should even mark it lower than that, but the comfort level of the SD is a 10. And it got to the point where I didn't even finish the doodle. That's never happened. That's the first time this year that I didn't finish the doodle because the pen just stopped working for me. Even putting the brass shim in between the tines, it was just, yeah, just not working, unfortunately. So probably the least favorite combination that I think I've had all year. And normally, like the last tono and limbs that I used, so the Burma Tourmaline in my oat luster, worked beautifully, no hard starts. But then again, this is a Schmidt fine nib, but this is a medium Yovo nib that's been ground to a reverse architect, and normally my Yovos handle shimmers well, but it's just this particular ink. So maybe there was something about the shimmer particles or whatever it was, but it just was not a favorite of mine, which is unfortunate because it's a beautiful ink. I love that blue base, but it just clogged. So that is my Esterbrook ST Blue Moon with Tono and Limbs Labradorite. The next pen and ink combination is my Pilot Kakuno in the Madarome Blue, and it has Ink Institute Shuyang Forest. I loved this combo. The steel Pilot nib is so smooth. The ink is a tad dry, but it does shade beautifully. I gave the ink a 9 because it's gorgeous, the flow a 7, and then the comfort level of the Kakuno an 8. And there are the paper swatches. Look at how beautiful that Shuyang Forest shades, and look at the chromo shading of the pinks and purples in there. It's just a stunning, stunning ink. And then you don't see it as much in the doodle, but it was so fun actually using the Pilot fine nib for these really, really fine lines. I love that I've taken the usual Zentangle, but then condensed it into a quarter of its size because I'm now using much finer nibs, and I love it. So that is the Pilot Kakuno Madarome Blue with Ink Institute Shuyang Forest. Next, we have my Esterbrook ST Lilac, and it has a Diamine Harmony. How pretty do those two look together? What a delightful pairing. I love this purple, and it had great flow in my extra fine nib. So I gave the ink a 9, the flow a 9, and the comfort level of an ST is always going to be a 10. Look at how stunning this purple looks on all of those different papers. And this is why I'm actually really liking purple, because of the different depths that it's got with all of the different papers. Look at the way that it looks on the onion skin. You can see the pink coming out here. Really, really lovely. And then the doodle, I just get such satisfaction with all of those tiny lines creating one big design like that. For me, there's something so satisfying about being able to do that over and over. It's really meditative, and it just means that I'm doing something with my hands that is not scrolling my phone. I love it. So that is my Esterbrook ST in Lilac with Diamine Harmony. And last but not least, we have another Franklin Christoph. This is the Ascension Wing in model 31, and this is a blank that was created by Storm Wind Blanks, who also did the blanks for my Winter Sunrise pen. And I have this inked with Diamine Ink Dependence. Don't trust a bivalve, because I think somebody corrected me, because it's, I think, don't trust a bivalve, not trust a bivalve. I do love Diamine shimmer inks. I love the brown base of this particular ink, and the blue shimmer is actually really consistent. I didn't have any hard starts. I gave the ink a 10 because it's stunning, absolutely stunning. The flow was a 9, and the comfort level of this model 31 a 9. What a fun ink. It actually looks more reddish brown on these papers rather than like that dusty brown pink on the Tomoe River paper. And then on the Arofal, it actually looks like it's more like Kitsune Biori, but then on the other ones like Midori, it looks more kind of, oh, what am I want to say, like a brick color red. And then you see that on the onion skin as well, but definitely more pinky brown on the Rhodia. Such an interesting ink. Now, I did say that I thought that the shimmer was consistent, but in this doodle, you can tell where I started versus when I've been writing for a while, and I guess that does tend to happen, but generally there was still a little bit of shimmer even in like the ones where it's trailing off a little bit. But I think I can't expect that. It's the way gravity works in a converter. So that is my Franklin Christoph. Let me grab that here. Love this pen. My Franklin Christoph in Ascension Wing, and that is with Diamine Don't Trust a Bivalve. So So there are the pen and ink combinations that I used for November. Let's actually put them on the page here, and they're gonna roll away as soon as I try to do this. But these were a fun bunch to use. Oh my gosh, I think it's because this side of the page is already so thick that these may not stay. But one of my favorite combinations was really this platinum, the new platinum, with that Elegy of the Fallen. I'm loving that crisp line. But the unexpected one that I really enjoyed was that Pelikan M800 with the ostrich ink. That really light green was actually really fun to use. And then my least favorite was the Esterbrook Esty Blue Moon with that Tono and Limbs Labradorite. But I love the Pilot Kakuno. I hope to have one inked every time that I do a currently inked, and I do have 4 now, so I think that's absolutely possible. And then we've got the Don't Trust a Bivalve. That one was a really interesting ink, but overall this was a great combination of pens and inks for the month of November. Now going into December, I will not be doing 15 inks 30 days. It's already, what is it, December 3rd that I'm filming this, and I barely have my inks and pens inked up ready to go for December. So I'm going to basically take it easy and just ink up what I feel like inking up and then going from there. I also won't be doing a progress update in terms of the number of pens and inks that I've acquired. I'm going to do one big end of the year one to show what I've acquired overall of 2025. But that is it for me. Thank you all so much for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know down below. Which one was your favorite out of these? And was my favorite the one that you thought it was going to be? Let me know. Once again, thanks. Oh gosh, what am I saying? Thanks again. And don't forget to hit that like button and to subscribe. All right, take care. Have a great rest of your day.